Oh, good afternoon. This is Mario Rivas at AskMario@Realtor.com. I'm here with Chris Lang. He is the owner and also inspector of First Rate Inspections. We're going to talk about inspections today. We're going to see what we can do to help you out to understand what goes beyond an inspection. So if you have any questions, you can always give us a call at 281-785-8144 or 832-567-5791. Or you can send the comments here through Facebook. So we're about to start here in a few minutes. So just give us a few seconds. And Chris, how are you? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing awesome.
Like I said, I'm here with Chris Lang. He's the owner and inspector as well of First Rate Inspection. He's been a great friend of ours, great friend of mine. His wife actually met with my wife first, and then that's how we were able to get together. He's the inspector that I use with all my inspections, and he's very reliable. And again, but I'll let him pat his back on his back, and then we'll go from there. Well, Chris, thank you for being here. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So, what can we tell our community, our people that are watching this video or listening to this podcast? What is the most important thing that they should look for before an inspection, and then obviously hire you as an inspector?
First of all, you're buying a very large investment here, and you want to make sure that you're buying something that's worthy of your family. So you want to make sure that you're getting into a house that's not going to cause you a lot of anguish and problems in the future. So what we are here to do is work side by side with you to get you into that comfortable zone. So when you buy the house, you know there's not going to be any major issues with the house. Make sure that your family is safe and comfortable and so forth. So we do a lot of different things. We have full office staff that can help you through the whole process. We'll communicate with you very well to make it easier. Make sure that you understand what we do and what services we have that can help you through the process. So main things that we're looking for in a house is one is costly things. Your roof, your foundation, your plumbing, electrical, so those major issues like that, your water heaters, those can be costly if you have issues with those. The other thing is safety. Safety is very important. As you know, you've got kids and grandkids in houses and stuff, and you want to make sure they're protected. So when we go through the house, we're going to be looking for all types of things like that for safety, and also a lot of different things that may cause issues with the house that we can tell now that there may be problems that we can save you in the future.
And the main thing is you have a keen foot, right, to look for things.
Yes.
Not to just go by a fly-by-night company that they're not gonna do any justice in looking at. They're just gonna do their report or their inspection. But they need to go with a company that has been many years in the business and is reputable as well, and somebody that knows what's going on, just like Chris. And I can vouch for him. He has done every one of my inspections, and I tell you, he's very detail oriented. He looks for things that maybe somebody else is not going to look for, and that's very important to me and for my families as well. Another thing that I don't think you mentioned was the AC unit. AC is a big part of as well of one of the bigger issues, I guess, that my clientele anyway, my clients say, well, what about the AC unit? How old is it?
Yeah, we can usually tell the age of the unit. We can tell if it's running properly by checking the temperature differentials and so forth. We're not licensed to go into the units themselves, but we can tell a lot by how they're done, how they're piped and so forth. So if they're piped properly, they will drain properly if there's a problem with it and so forth. So we want to make sure that those things are operating to the proper potential. And if they're not, making sure that we get those looked at by a professional.
And the roof, because I know you mentioned the roof. It's one of the big important you look at the different granules, how the roof is the LDL. I mean, how old the roof is. What is it exactly that you look for?
So basically what we're looking for on the roof, one is granular loss, because granular loss makes a difference in how long that roof is going to last in the future. So we want to make sure that you have some life on it. We're also looking at flashings, the type of flashings. Are they done properly? Are they sealed properly? Caulking is a good sealant, but it's only a temporary sealant. Flashings are permanent sealant, so you want to make sure those flashings are in place. They're not rusted out. They're not lifting, so air can blow underneath and water can come underneath. If you think about a home, the biggest, probably most important thing about a home is keeping it sealed. Moisture can do damage to so many things, and if you get moisture in the home, that's where the damage comes. So if you can prevent the moisture from coming into a house, then you don't have the issues that you would later on down the road.
And that's one big thing, because moisture leads to other expensive items such as mold and whatnot.
Deterioration. I mean, as far as you look at a house and it's got a roof leak that's been leaking for a while, it starts deteriorating the roof. So it end up, you have to cut out, roofing materials, and you have to redo all that, and then possibility of mold coming through in the ceilings and stuff like that. So if you have mold, there's mold granules or mold spores penetrate into the air and they don't dissipate. The thing about mold that most people don't understand is when you have mold if you have visible mold, that means there's a lot of mold. A lot of times you'll have mold and you don't even know it because there's mold outside, there's mold inside, but you don't want it in large quantities of it. So if we can keep that down, then that's good by preventing water from penetrating inside.
And the great thing is that you are certified as a mold inspector.
I'm actually a licensed mold consultant. So yes, I can write protocols, we can do all the testing and so forth.
So that's the beauty of going with you as well, because you're not just knowing the structural part of it, inspections, but you also also know mold. You can tell somebody, look, it's possible to be mold.
So a lot of people are concerned about houses that they have flooded. Okay, if they're buying a house that was flooded in Harvey, is it clean? Was it cleaned properly? It may look beautiful inside, but if it makes your family sick, that's not a good thing. So we can go in and we can test those and make sure they're clean house as far as healthy houses.
Because that's another thing. I mean, if they fix the house, right? If it flooded, they fixed it. They, like you said, they beautified it. They put everything nice, but behind the walls, you can't see.
Right.
The mold spores, it might still be there, and you still might still get sick. You might not be able to see it, but it's because it's behind the wall.
Well, there's big things that the contractors try to do a really good job of cleaning the house. So they'll go through and they'll spray all their moldicides and different things on there to kill the mold. So they think they did right. But what the step that they forget about is the air. Because the mold, once it grows in about 48 hours, it gets into the air, the mold spores. So now it goes in behind cabinets, goes in behind all sorts of things. So and if they cut the sheetrock out 2 foot, and mold spores in the air, it's going in behind that. So now I've got mold there, so if I've got moisture, it can grow. So once those spores are there, so you want to knock those spores down by using filtration systems or enzyme treatments to get to that. And a lot of times people think that they're going to have to rip out the house again and redo all this stuff that they just did. If they find mold, that's not the case. You can usually treat that with an enzyme treatment.
Okay. Hey, sometimes I go in homes, show homes, and the vents are black.
Right.
That tells me that the units is also something, there's something in the unit for you able to kind of spew throughout the house, right?
Yeah, what happens with that, and this is a funny thing, if I go and test with my mold testers, my mold pulls particles out of the air. And with those type of mold spores, they're usually happy because they're moist. So they're not letting the spores out, and you will not see them in a mold sample. So you have to actually swab those. Okay. But they do put off harmful gases that can make you really sick. So it's very important that those are dealt with also, not just air sampling.
So what are your recommendations for something like that? If I see that on the vent that's black,
yeah,
obviously you have to clean the whole unit, including the ducts.
Right.
So your recommendation would be treated with enzyme, treated with a different, maybe ultralight. What are your recommendations?
The enzyme's the best because it actually breaks down the mold spore, so it's not harmful. It's not putting off harmful toxins anymore. Ultraviolet light will kill the mold so it doesn't grow. The problem with ultraviolet light is it just kills the mold. Well, whether the mold's live or dead, it's still harmful to you. So you actually need to get rid of the spore and break it down.
Okay.
So that's the thing
So
that
that'll be
people
the
don't
recommendation.
understand. So yes, you've got to get rid of it. So it's either cleaning it out by cleaning the air. Some of it's going to clean out over time with your air filter and sweeping, mopping, dusting, so forth. But if it's large quantities of it, you need to get a faster reaction to it and get more of it out so they're not having issues.
And usually sellers will tell you, no, I've been living like that for a long time, and nothing has happened to me. But if you can see it, I mean, to me, if I can see something black coming out of a vent, automatically I will assume that the unit is also somewhat needs to be treated.
Right, and one of the things that people don't realize, if you may not feel anything from it, but your wife may come in, or your small child that has a weaker immune system and may be suffering terribly. We've had clients that were in the floods. That house that we did flooded 4 times, and the man in the house was fine, didn't think there was an issue. When we sent the results to the lab, the doctor at the lab called us personally and said, "Tell me nobody's living in this house because it's really, really bad." And I said, "No," and he doesn't think it's a problem. But his wife was having to wear a mask to walk into the master bedroom, so she was staying on the other side of the house. Wow. So, I mean, it affects different people different ways. Government doesn't regulate how much mold you can have in a house. They regulate, what the standards kind of are, but they don't really tell you how much mold can be in there. So all that's done through protocols, through different labs and stuff.
Different analysis.
To tell you what they feel like is a safe level. But what may be a safe level for you may not be for your wife or your child.
But they should. The government is into everything else. They should let us know, hey, look, if you have X amount of spores or X amount of, fungus or anything in the house, and this is what the readings are, you might need to consider.
Well, and through the labs, they do that. They give you what they think is high or what, according to what's there. And it also depends on what kind of spores are there. So you may have Stachybotrys, which is black mold that everybody hears about. You may have 2 or 3 spore counts and it may be high. Whereas Penicillium aspergillus, you may have 800 spores per cubic meter and it won't show up high. So it just depends on the mold, how poisonous it is, how bad it is, toxic it is, I guess.
And on the inspection, is that included or is that separate?
The actual mold air sampling is separate. We do look for visual mold. So if we see something in a vent or whatever, we're going to call that off and recommend. As home inspectors, we're not allowed to call it mold. It's a gross mold-like substance or something like that. Okay.
There's a black spot there.
Right. But we can't tell it's mold because we haven't tested it yet. So unless you test it, you really don't know what it is. Most of the time I can tell you, it's mold, it's probably Cladosporium, it's in a vent, but it doesn't mean that it is. Until we test it, we don't know for sure. But I will tell you that I've seen them black around the vent over here, and the test right underneath it came out clear with air sampling. But knowing what I know, I had to swab it to make sure, and it was mold, but it wasn't showing up in the air. So most everything else I've seen shows up in the air. That in the air-conditioned vents doesn't, and that's the best thing I can say is I think it stays moist and it's happy and it's so gross.
So the best way to prevent it, you said, go ahead and get good sealing, right? Make sure the moisture comes in.
Right.
That way you have that great sealing. To like your ultraviolet, will that help as well? You have an enzyme, solution every once in a while. What
the biggest
kind of for prevention, maybe?
Right, prevention. I would tell you the best prevention you can do is just not have moisture penetrations. So sealing up your house properly, making sure if you have a leak, address it right away. One of the biggest things most people don't realize, if you have a bathroom and the caulking turns black around the bathroom, people think that's mildew. Well, that's not mildew, it's mold. Okay? And the reason why it keeps coming back, it's not that it's growing back through the caulking, it's because you're not solving the moisture problem. So this is one trick that I've learned that works really well. If you go where the switch is on the wall, where you turn that fan on, if you'll go in and put a timer in there, they make a humidity sensor. Humidity sensor is like $35, I believe, and the timer is about $20. If you install that in and run it at least 30 minutes to an hour after you get out of the shower, you won't have that problem because you're solving the moisture problem. The moisture is off the walls, so it's not growing.
So the extractor that doesn't work either, or somewhat.
Well, the vent fan works, but the problem is people are taking a shower, they walk out, they turn it on for a few minutes, they get their makeup on or get ready to brush their teeth and get ready to go to work, they shut it off because they don't want to run it all day. So it doesn't run long enough. So if you think about it, if you're in a bathroom and your window fogs or your mirror fogs up, your walls are the same way. If you rub your wall, you're going to feel moisture on it. Okay, that mirror, because it doesn't soak up moisture, is going to stay on there. It will actually dissipate pretty quickly. But your walls are porous, and they will actually soak up that moisture, and it'll stay wet for quite a while. So that's why you have problems with your walls turning. And usually you'll notice mold on the ceilings. Your humidity goes up to the ceiling and stops, and then that's where your mold starts growing at when the spores hit it.
That's great information, Chris. So let's move from the mold. Let's say now electrical.
Right.
That's another big thing that you mentioned. Electrical is one of the big parts. Older homes especially, they don't have they're up to code. Newer homes that should be up to code.
Right. Newer homes are putting in things like arc fault protection, which arc fault fire prevention basically. So if you can prevent it from sparking, you prevent the fire. So what we're doing with arc fault nowadays, we started out in bedrooms in 2002 because of the fact that they were having a lot of fires in bedrooms. If you think about when we grew up, we probably had an alarm clock, maybe a clock radio in there. Nowadays they have tablets, they have computers, they have all these electronic devices, games and stuff. And a lot of these little converters get hot and they melt and they were causing a lot of fires. So they started putting those in there. So if you've ever plugged anything in, you got a little spark off that would trip that GFCI or the arc fault breaker. So 2008 they decided to do the whole house. 2015 they've added arc fault combination GFCIs to some devices around water, like your dishwasher disposal and your washing machine.
And this, you say this is standard, right? Of 2008, and mandatory mainly.
Well,
that they have to have it.
As of 2002 bedrooms, 2008 went to all habitable rooms, 2015 they went to the arc fault GFCI combinations. So those came in, and like the carbon monoxide detectors, if you have gas, those came in 2015. So those all there to protect you, protect your family.
And it's recommended, obviously, even if you have an older home, to convert it.
The GFCIs are very important because GFCI, if you got your hands in water and something drops in electrical, it shuts it off immediately. So that I would say you convert. The arc fault's not necessarily, it's more, but it's a fire safety. So if you got smoke alarms and stuff like that, you can prevent that from people getting hurt by that. It is very expensive to convert, and not all houses really convert well, from what I understand, with electrical systems, because they were designed different back then than
Especially
they are now.
if they have aluminum wiring as well.
Yeah, aluminum wire you'll see in some of the older houses, not near as much in the newer homes back in the 70s and stuff. It's been copper.
How, I guess when you go in, you'll see all that.
Yes.
And then you put it on your report, obviously,
Right.
which I've seen it before. That's just a recommendation. Again, everything that Chris does is just a recommendation. It's nothing that is going to have to tell you have to do this. You recommend. You don't say,
What people always ask is, did the house pass or not? It's not a pass or fail. It's it is what it is. It's whether you want to buy that house. There's a house for everybody. Okay, this may not be the house for you, but it may be perfect for somebody else. It depends on, you know, how much money you can afford, what you're looking for, how handy you are. There's always people out there that's like, I don't mind a fixer-upper, I can do that, and it's, you know, no big deal. Where other people want everything perfect because they don't do anything around the home.
And it's unfortunate. I mean,
Yeah.
they say you have the two spectrums. One, yeah, no problem, I'll buy it, no big deal. The other one is no, I want it 100% like it's brand new.
Right.
And sometimes you can. I mean, let's be realistic.
Right.
You're not if you're saying buying an older home, let's say a 70 home, and it has all these different issues that were not up to code up to now,
Right.
but the buyer, the consumer, they want to bring it up to code. It's gonna, you know, it's to be realistic. It's gonna be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 to bring it up to code.
Can be. And you can do a little at a time. I own an older home. It's 1984, and every time I get into something redoing it, I just bring it up to code. So, you know, you do the water heater, you make sure the venting's proper, you do the furnace, you make sure the vent's proper, and then drip legs on the gas lines, different things like that. So everything you do when you work in the kitchen, you start putting in GFCIs. You put in, you know, GFCIs in the bathrooms if they're not there. So, you know, it just, as you go through them, you just do a little bit here and there, and then pretty soon you're in pretty safe shape.
Exactly. And I'll tell you a story. I had a listing. They didn't use you. They used another inspection company. They came out and the roof was 15 years old.
Okay.
They didn't want to buy it because the roof was 15 years old. They want us, my seller, to pay for a brand new roof because they didn't want to change it in another 15 years. So we're 30-year roof.
30-year roof.
I said, yeah, that's kind of okay. You know, it passed because it was a good roof, nothing wrong with it, but they still wanted it because it was 15 years old. So sometimes you get those recommendations are, even though it was good, the inspector recommended it that it needed to be replaced. So, but you know,
and insurance companies now are getting picky about it too. If it's over 10 years, some insurance companies don't want to insure it.
Exactly.
So it's and they don't always tell you up front. They tell you a year later when it's time to renew. I've had that happen, so it makes it challenging.
Makes it challenging. Another question that was brought up last week: that air conditioning systems, the older, they're going to be changing in 2020. Is that something that you heard?
They update them all the time. I haven't heard anything recently as far as any more changes.
It's just somebody, a consumer, called me and says, you know, Mario, they told me that this air conditioning system is 18 years old. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. So after 2020, they're not gonna be good for the environment, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I just wanted to see.
It's possible. There's some, and the problem with the older units, they use different freons, so they're not allowed to fill those things up anymore. The freon, for one, is very expensive. And if they're that old, you're not saving money by keeping that system, because if you go to the newer systems, they operate under a lot lower energy, and you'll probably save money by putting a new system in.
They're not energy efficient.
All right.
Okay, the other point, plumbing, you said, right? What's the other issue? Out of the 5 that you mentioned, was roof, electric, plumbing,
AC,
foundation, and safety.
And safety.
The main thing is safety,
Yeah.
but we'll leave safety for last for right now.
Right.
But plumbing, what do you look for? Pressure in plumbing?
A lot of things. The biggest thing is probably, especially in older houses, the type of piping that you have. If it's galvanized piping, it has a life expectancy of about 40 to 50 years. So if you have galvanized pipe in your house, it's that age that it's probably needs to be replaced here pretty soon. So what we're looking for is stains on the ceiling. We're looking for corrosion on the pipe anywhere. So if we see that, then we can recommend that it be checked out by a licensed plumber to give you an idea. For example, I just did one this morning, and it had galvanized pipe in it. They'd already had a plumber look at it, and he didn't see any issues with it, and I didn't either at the time, so it's fine now. But you don't know if it's going to last a week or 6 years from now, because it rusts from the inside out. So if you see repairs on it, if you see patches on it, then you know it's probably at the end of its life.
In pressure, do you test the pressure as well?
We do test the pressure on the house. Normally it should be between 40 and 80 pounds of pressure. If it's over 80, that causes problem, because you can have things busting because there's too much pressure on them, faucets and stuff leaking, water heaters leaking, stuff like that. If it's too low a pressure, then you don't have the proper flow. Now, we'll tell you down in the downtown areas, the government requires only like 15 pounds pressure.
Oh, wow.
So you'll see some that are very low pressure, and they function as long as there's enough volume.
So those are the ones that if you're in the shower, you go to the bathroom and you flush it. That's when you get hot.
Yeah, no, that's funny you say that, but that's the way my faucet is in my house. Okay, but actually the new faucets now are pressure balanced. So when you cut down the pressure on one side, it cuts down the pressure on the other side. So it just cuts down the flow, but it doesn't change the heat and cold and stuff.
And you're showing the water pressure. Is that interior or can it be exterior as well?
We check the water pressure outside it like a hose bib. That's what we do.
Okay.
So that's usually a minor deal. The biggest things are leaks and faucets and stuff like that. Drains, slow drains, or if they're backing up, making sure the toilets are flushing properly, not gurgling and stuff when they're going down.
And another question is, sewers. Do you guys check the sewers as well?
Sewer
lines.
We run water through them, but the problem is with sewer lines, we can't see underground. So unless you're running a sewer scope, you don't know. I mean, you can have roots growing through a line and water will pass through fine, but once you start flushing solids through it, gets stuck and starts backing up. So it's important to get that stuff checked out if you're in an old house. Otherwise, there's some warranties that you can go out and get. We actually give one to our clients. It covers up to $2,000 for sewer line stoppage up to 2 occurrences. So if they have roots growing in the system, they'll pay to help repair that.
That's why you choose First Right Inspections, because they're one-stop shop. Okay, then we go to foundation.
Foundations.
That's something that not nobody wants to talk about, but foundation issues is the main deterrent from buying a house.
One of the
Especially there's a difference, right? Foundation issues and there's settlement issues or settlement.
Settlement issues.
Yeah.
So what you see on foundations, a lot of people think, oh, my house is going to fall down. Well, if the foundation's bad, it's not going to fall down unless it's just terribly, terribly, terribly bad. But normally it'll just make it tweak over the side or something. But what you'll see is you'll see cracks come up. So normally if you're looking at foundation issues, you're going to see cracks going diagonally, like off a door or window. So if you've got a corner of a door or window, you see it going diagonally, that's where you have foundation movement, because the foundation is going like this and it's ripping the sheetrock apart. Whereas if you see straight up and down or straight sideways, normally that's just the wood settling down and stuff. A lot of people freak out about new houses because the first 2 years they're settling. The wood's kiln dried to 19% moisture. Well, after it sits in the house for a year or two, it dries out to about 5 to 7% moisture, so it shrinks. When it shrinks, the drywall doesn't shrink at the same rate and causes little cracks or bumps and different things. People freak out about that, but it's just cosmetic. Another thing that you'll see is when you have a beveled ceiling. If you have beveled ceilings, that's actually the roof line. The roof moves with the wind and the storms and stuff like that. Will cause little cracks. I would always tell my clients, if you have little cracks like that, don't go put mud and stuff in it, because it's just going to re-crack. Get you a little silicone or DAP caulk, just a cheapy caulk, and just put it in that little crack and then wipe the excess off with a sponge and you won't even notice it. But that's a way to fix it, and it's still pliable, so when it moves, it doesn't re-crack.
Yeah.
Right. So help you protect it.
But then when you see the major issues is you have a big crack throughout maybe half of the house, or not even half of the house, maybe just portion of the house.
Maybe a portion.
Yeah.
Right. So what you're looking for is separation. So if you have a separation, if you have a crack and it's about the same top to bottom, it's not an issue. When it separates at the top or separates at the bottom, that means your foundation is not stable and it's causing those separations. Usually you'll see it in brickwork outside, then you'll see it in doors and windows and stuff inside. So normally you don't see the little stair-step cracks in the outside are usually expansion. It's just expanding, it's making it on expansion joint because either it didn't have one or just decided not to crack there. Because the expansion joints are made to help it shrink and swell as the material shrinks and expands. So that's very common to have little cracks like that, but you want to try to alleviate the ones that are wider at the top or bottom. For example, if you see a separation at a window in the corner here, and then I see one on the other corner, I see a separation in either a window, door, or something like that, then that probably means that corner is dropped. And then it needs to be supported. Is it going to be really bad? Probably not. On something like that, it's easy to fix and probably not going to happen again if you get it adjusted right. What I try to explain to people, if you have a foundation, it's like holding a cracker. If it's broken in half, it's pretty easy to hold it together. If it's broken in 6 directions, it's kind of hard to put together. So if it's one minor crack, it's usually not a big deal. If it's a bunch of cracks, then you're having more problems trying to keep it stable. And it's not going to make the house fall down, but it will cause cosmetic issues, cause tile to crack, cause cracks in the drywall, separations, different things like that.
So it'd be better just to nip it,
Nip in the bud and go ahead and get it adjusted. Usually, minimum's usually about $2,500, $3,000 to get a foundation looked at, or get it taken care of. On upwards, 10, 15,000, depending on how many piers they put in and so forth, and the company you use. Most of the companies are around $375 a pier. We have companies out there that'll do it for $175 a pier, and there's guys that'll charge $575 a pier. So the company makes a lot of difference in what you get.
You pretty much get the same results, right?
Same results. They use different technologies and different things, and one says, okay, they pretty much all give you a lifetime warranty on it also, so, but if the company's been around 30 years, they're probably going to be around. If they've been around 6 months, are they going to be here to take care of the warranty later? So
that's a good thing. And make sure you also have transferable warranty.
Right.
If it's a lifetime transferable warranty, because that will help you whoever buys the house.
So when I talk to people about foundations, so if somebody's buying a house and it had foundation work done to it, what we're looking for is it had any residual movement after the foundation work was done. 2 days ago, I think Saturday or whatever, I did a house that had some foundation work on the front left corner of the house. But I saw movement on the front right corner. So even though they said the foundation work was done, they didn't address this part. So it's like, well, you need to look at this, because look at what the engineering report said. Did they say, all this was okay, or did they say that we just fixed this and they didn't want to spend the money on that part? So that's something you got to look at, and you do that by looking at the measurements on the floors and stuff. And most foundation companies will do that for free.
Okay, thank you. So the next one will be, we'll talk about AC, we'll talk about foundation, electrical, plumbing, roof. So now we look at safety.
Safety.
That's one of the main things, safety, especially for the homeowner. Whether you're buying or selling it, you want to make sure you're safe, in whatever environment you're on. Because it doesn't matter. We can talk about everything that is important, or mainly the bigger ticket items in a home, because everything else is pretty much cosmetic. Window is broken, it's cosmetic, that can be replaced. Right. But the major items, those the files that we talked about, those are the key that can deter somebody from buying a home.
Right.
But the main thing is safety. If you don't feel safe in the house, it doesn't matter what you do to it. You still might not feel safe.
Right. And we talked a little about GFCIs. We talked about arc fault breakers. Those are big safety concerns that can help with the safety in the house. But you got to think about pools. If there's a pool in the backyard, are the drains proper drains? Are they do they have the proper protection to be able to get out of a house? A lot of times they'll have a keyed lock on the back door, and I've talked to firefighters that we've done inspections for, and they'll tell you there can be a key hanging at the back door on a nail, and they died trying to get out the door because they freaked out and couldn't get the key open.
And trust me, I was a volunteer firefighter for many, many years, so trust me, I know. And I've seen that unfortunately.
Yeah.
Especially when we have bars on the windows.
Yeah.
There's a key there, but the moment that you get disoriented, the moment that's this fire, a moment that the adrenaline kicks in, you might not see it.
Yeah.
So therefore, you are trapped within your own home.
Right.
And actually, the FHA does not allow you to have bars on your windows.
Yeah.
They will tell you no, they have to come up.
Yeah, and the bars usually will have a release. If they're done right, they have a release that you can do from inside, and it's pretty easy to open. but definitely want to look at all that type of stuff. You want to look at egress and stuff like that. Do you have a way out of a door? Door, window, a room. So if they converted a garage to a room, there's no window in it. Well, the only way to get out is that one door. And if there's a fire in that hallway
Then
coming
you
in,
don't have an exit strategy.
you're toast.
Unfortunately, yes.
So it's a good idea to look at that. You know, if you have small children and the windows are really high, can they get out? Do they have a ladder in there or some way that they can get out? So those are the things.
And that's what we're talking about, safety. I mean, not necessarily about safety, but safety in the home. They mix, especially in the older homes. You say GFCI is big, important. Galvanized piping is also, or plumbing is also important. They need to change it.
Right.
Electricity or electric, they need to make sure it's not aluminum, because aluminum can catch fire, current. What else can? It's just a lot of things that you look at in an older home that you can say, oh, you know, yeah, I can fix her up or I can fix it. But then let's think about the family you're gonna put in there.
Well, we're talking about electrical. There's electric panel. Excuse me. Electric panels out there that are like Federal Pacific are known fire hazards. What happens is where the breakers clip into it is aluminum, and if it gets loose, it will melt those bars, and then that's what causes a fire. So a lot of times people look at it and it's like, it looks fine to me, but it may be melted behind it and you can't see it. That's why we recommend an electrician take a look and make sure everything's okay. But you know, those little things, antioxidant grease on the main feeds, double load neutrals, there's all sorts of little things that we look at, grounding, bonding, that we're looking at to make sure that you're safe.
And make sure the air flows properly as well, you know,
Right.
especially on the dishwashers. Or anything underneath the kitchen, right? Or
Right.
not the kitchen, the sink.
The sink and stuff, making sure it's flowing right. And, you know, and we give you ideas and tips and stuff if you have slow drains. You know, is it a shower where there's hair that gets clogged up in there? You don't want to use, you know, your acids and stuff, base materials. You want to use enzymes that will actually eat those away and not damage your pipes and stuff. So I talk to people all the time about different things. You know, they get soap scum on their shower doors and don't know how to get it off. We've got products that we can tell you how to clean those things and stuff. So it's just knowledge from me knowing the industry, been in it 30 years. I've got a lot of background in it.
And
And
he's
I'm not-
very experienced, trust me. Nowadays, lately, I've heard a lot of water heaters exploding. Is that something that is more common now, or is it why is there exploding?
What happens with that, there's a temperature pressure relief valve on a water heater, and probably 99% of the people don't test that. You're actually supposed to test it at least once a year. I put my water heater in last August, and we were talking about that the other day. I had a crawfish boil for all my employees. I said, when's the last time you've done your water, tested your TMP on your water heater? Everybody's like,
I don't know.
I haven't, you know, and these are inspectors.
What is that?
You know, they know what it is, but they don't test it.
No, but many people say, oh, what is
Yeah,
that?
most people don't. So I've tested mine at least 5 times, and I happened to do it that day. And I was like, we were talking about it. It was like, yeah, I test mine every time I walk by it. I'll just flip it and just make sure it opens. Because what happens if the burner gets stuck in the wrong position or something, it's going to just sit there and boil, and like a pressure cooker, it's going to find a way out. Well, that little 10p pressure valve is what releases it, like I think it's 151 pounds of pressure or 210 degrees it's supposed to release, and that releases that water out and steam so it doesn't blow up, because they can blow up. I've had it where they've leveled a house, they've shot up through the second floor.
So just go in and flip it up?
Open it up a little bit, just make sure it's moving.
Okay.
The problem is when you open it up, sometimes it doesn't want to shut, and then you have to replace it. If you call a plumber, it's about $150. If you do it yourself, it's about $20.
But it saves you from
Having
either
it
blowing up the
blow
whole
up
attic or the whole garage or going through
Or you.
the second floor. Yeah, or me. Which is the main
Yeah,
thing.
the main thing you're worried about.
So just flip it a little bit, or just you flip the
I
whole
just
thing?
open it enough to hear water going out.
Okay.
If I feel it moving, I know it's going to open,
Okay.
and that's it.
And if it's a brand new, it shouldn't.
And Texas is actually the only state where inspectors are actually required to open that.
Okay.
We are required to open that. We don't always open it if it doesn't open freely. we think it might leak or whatever, then we don't have to open it, but we are supposed to test it. Everybody else throughout the country, I'm in a group, and everybody thinks I'm crazy for testing them. It's like, we have to, it's our code.
And to drain it, do you recommend draining it as well?
It's always a good idea, but it's difficult. Unfortunately, they don't make it where it's easy. If if they did it
Especially
right,
in the attic.
they would hook it up and put another pipe on that deal, and you could just open it up and drain it out. But unfortunately, that's not the case. Most of your water heaters will last quite a while anyway, and it's really not going to affect it a whole lot. What it does do is that you'll hear it making gurgling sound, kind of like rocks in the bottom. So it doesn't heat as well because that calcium gets built up in the bottom and just sits here and just keeps going around in there. So it can make an annoying sound if it's above a kid's
if you drain it,
or
that
something
helps
like
out.
that. It does help get some of that stuff out.
Does it
Get
help?
the valves right.
I'm sorry. Does it help also if you have a water softener system?
Water softeners definitely do. And what people don't realize about water softeners also help save you money because your soap, you'll use about a quarter of the amount of soap that you normally would. And it definitely stops all the calcium buildup on your faucets. So if you have heavy buildup on your little screens on your faucets and stuff, and they get built up all the time where they don't spray very well, that water softener will help stop all that. And can actually reverse some of that, clean it up if you hadn't done it already.
So that's very good.
Yeah.
Any other tips before we go, Chris?
I think that's pretty much it. And, thank you for allowing me to come in here and talk to everybody. And if you have any questions, feel free to give our office a call. We'll be more than happy to call you back. Remember, it's 832-567-5791, First Rate Inspections.
Chris, thank you very much. I really, really appreciate your time. And you're busy. You're a busy man. But thank you for your time. It's a pleasure, like always.
Thank you so much.
Again, First Rate Inspection, Chris Lang. He is one of the best. Like I said, I recommend it. If you have any questions, give me a call, 281-785-8144, and we're here to help you, and we're here to try to answer any questions that you have, or if you ever had in your house, or if you want your house inspected, just call me or you call Chris. Thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for watching us. You have a great day.